Week 4 is history, and as Natasha Bedingfield says, the rest is still unwritten. Let's take a look at how last week's games played out. Up first, Anna's struggles continued in her loss to Rachel last week, due in part to underperformance from Devontae Adams, Tyler Lockett, and Melvin Gordon. In general, there's no one player to take all of the blame, as only Matt Stafford, James Conner, and Noah Fant broke 15 points for Dizzy's Dummies. 911 put up a top-heavy performance with 20-point games from each of Ezekiel Elliott, James Robinson, Jonathan Taylor, and Justin Herbert, and less than 30 points from her other 5 starters combined. The final of this one was 111 to 101 in Rachel's favor. Kang put up the best score of the week in his matchup with Eric. Austin Eckler stood out with a 30-point week, but Kang had 3 other players break 20, and only his kicker and defense failed to break 10. Eric was let down massively by Week 4 pickup Myles Gaskin, and with Tyson Williams' future in question, some serious roster changes may be in order for the Gators. The final score, 143 to 105. Eric with a K took down Dave in a revenge game from last year. Dave's kicker Robbie Gould was not active for the game, which mattered in the game that was decided by less than 9 points. Niners receiver Deebo Samuel came up huge for Eric with 35.7 points to push him to a 135 to 126 win, breaking Dave's undefeated streak and pulling him down out of first place. Kyle took his 4th straight game of the season and his 4th straight from Dan by less than a full point. Dan was holding on to a 29-point lead on Sunday night with only Derek Carr and Darren Waller remaining on Kyle's roster. Unfortunately for Dan, those two connected for a touchdown and put up exactly what Kyle asked for and nothing more. The final of this one, 123-14 to 122-42. Natalie held off Jared again in their 4th all-time meeting. It's the 3rd time that Josie and the Pussycats have taken down You Shall Not Pass, and it was a close one. Tyreek Hill and DJ Moore combined for 79.5 points for Jared, but Dallas Goedert was the only other player to break 15 points. Natalie got a solid performance across the board, including the Bills' defense's 5-turnover, 3-sack shutout of the Texans, worth 23 fantasy points. Jared needed 11 points from Nick Folk on Monday night, and even if Folk had made the game-winning field goal from 50-plus yards, he would have been left 1 point short, as the final of this one was 131.3 to 136.5. Caroline took down Kathy in what can only be described as a meltdown from the Pouty Puppies. Kathy's top 3 players, Lamar Jackson, Saquon Barkley, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, put up about 70 points, but her other 6 players averaged 3 points apiece, including a goose egg from Washington tight end Logan Thomas. Caroline just needed a decent week to take this one handily, with a final of 85 to 119. In the game of the week, the trajectory stayed true as Catherine snuck past Susan in a low-scoring affair. Joe Burrow was the only starter on either team to break 20 points, and Mike Evans' 14-point Monday night game was enough to push Nunya Breezeness to their 2nd straight win. The final score of this one was 87 to 82. Let's take a look at what that means for the standings this week. We've got a new leader in the RFFFL, and he's the only remaining undefeated manager after 4 weeks. Kyle and Kumquat Calamity's nail-biter win pushed him to the top, with help from Eric with a K taking down Dave, who falls down to number 2. Kang's high-scoring win pushes him up into the 3 spot, and pushes Natalie and Eric with a K down to 4th and 5th respectively. In the 6th spot is Caroline, the highest scoring of the 4, 2, and 2 teams. 7, 8, and 9 are Kathy, Rachel, and Catherine. At 1 and 3 are Jared, Dan, Eric, and Susan, leaving Anna in last at 0 and 4. Fun little factoid for you, 4 of the bottom 5 teams are all outscoring the 4, 2, and 2 teams. With that in mind, there's nothing left to do but look ahead to this week, starting with the roster moves. Before the games, Caroline dropped the Rams for the Cowboys, and then grabbed Zach Pascal for Deontay Harris and got A.J. Green to replace Rondale Moore. Yesterday, she picked up Curtis Samuel to take the place of Will Fuller, who is now on injured reserve. Kathy grabbed Taylor Heineke on Thursday for Justin Jackson, picked up Greg Joseph for Younghoe Koo, and grabbed K.J. Osborne to fill in for Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who is on IR. Eric grabbed Myles Gaskin on Friday waivers for Ronald Jones, and dropped Justin Fields yesterday to pick up Le'Veon Bell. Kyle dropped the Patriots to pick up the Broncos, picked up Sam Darnold to fill a spot left by James White being placed on IR, and grabbed Sammy Watkins to replace Jared Goff. Dave dropped the Packers to pick up the Rams defense, dropped Terrace Marshall Jr. to pick up Cameron Brate, dropped Brate to grab Jeremy McNichols, dropped DJ Chark to pick up Mike Gesicki, dropped Robbie Gould for Ryan Suckup, and dropped the Rams to grab the Cardinals. who Eric with a K had dropped to pick up Ronald Jones. Eric with a K also dropped the Washington defense to pick up the Patriots. Rachel dropped the Falcons to take back the Titans, who she dropped last week. Dan dropped Dan Arnold to pick up Rams wide receiver Van Jefferson. Jared dropped Robert Tonyan to grab Alex Collins, the backup running back for Seattle. And Catherine dropped the Bengals to pick up the Vikings defense. Now let's look ahead to this week's matchups, which start tonight. Kang stays locked onto the Greenville household as he sets his sights on Dizzy's Dummies this week. After putting up the best week 4 in the league, the Cursed City will open Thursday night with Robert Woods across the line from Anna's 5 Thursday night starters, including her defense and kicker. She'll need a heck of a night to hold her lead and come away with the win, which NFL.com says she does by a score of 116 to 115. Caroline and Dave square off for their 10th overall matchup this week. It's a pretty even split historically, with Caroline winning 5 of the first 9. Caroline's coming off a win over Kathy is the only team without a 2-game streak in either direction so far, and Dave will hope to keep it that way as he looks to bounce back from his first loss. Dave will open up Thursday night with Cooper Kupp, Darrell Henderson, and DK Metcalf, and Caroline will close it out on Monday night with Mark Andrews and possibly Zach Pascal. NFL.com says Dave gets back in the win column by a score of 121 to 116. Eric with a K gets his second revenge game in 2 weeks as he takes on Natalie. Josie and the Pussycats came out on top last year, and this year it'll be a 2-game series. Both teams are 3-1, coming off of impressive wins last week. This will be an all-Sunday affair, with Natalie sending out Emmanuel Sanders, Harrison Butker, and the Bills' defense on Sunday Night Football. As always, NFL.com has Natalie's team doing poorly, and they're giving Eric the win 120 to 105. In another matchup between 1 and 3 teams, Susan and Jared look to bounce back from heartbreaking Week 4 losses. Jared will need a much better week from his running backs, and Susan will need a better week from just about everyone. Despite sharing records, the projections in this one are not close, with Jared supposedly taking it 133 to 113. Kathy will have her work cut out for her as she tries to be the first to knock off Kyle this season. Kumquat Calamity is the second highest scoring team in the league, and the Pouty Puppies are the 4th lowest. That said, we've seen crazier things happen this year already, so we'll see if Kathy's late players like Beasley, Edwards-Helaire, and Lamar Jackson can pull one out. NFL.com doesn't see it happening, though, as they have Kyle winning 131 to 112. In the season's first all-newcomer matchup, 2-2 Rachel takes on 2-2 Catherine. Both teams started 0-2 and have come back to even with 2 straight wins. Rachel's Week 4 performance was weighed down by underperforming wideouts, and Catherine's was much the same. Regardless, the projection for this one has Catherine going positive by a score of 122 to 112. And in the game of the week, Dan and Eric are slated for their 5th all-time meeting. The matchup is 3-1 in Eric's favor, but Dan took last year's game, and he'll look to bring it even closer to even this year in a 2-game series. These two are ranked 11 and 12 in the league, but it'll be an interesting watch with Marquise Brown and Nyheim Hines in the lineups on Monday night. All in all, it's projected to go to Dan 114 to 111. That's all for this week. I look forward to watching this week's matchups, and again, I'll see you next Thursday.